So we'll call the meeting order at 6. We do have a quorum. Tracy, can you just make a note of the people that are in the audience?
Certainly.
I don't know if you know Patrick, but Patrick just became a select board person, and the select board for Dover's always had a liaison to from the select board to the school board. So he drew the short straw being the new guy. So he actually, it was Scott Salway was the one who used to be it, and then he resigned. So Patrick, I don't know if you know, Tracy's our principal in this building. Bob is our superintendent for the SU. There's somebody on TV, I don't know where she is, in the middle. Oh, no, upper right? Oh, well, Kate's the vice chair.
Hi there.
And there is, where is the Wardsboro principal?
You just lost her.
Francesca?
She was there a minute ago.
Okay.
She left us.
And anyways, and then you've got, yes, Eli from Wardsboro, Mikey from Dover, and Dwight's from Wardsboro, and then Kate is also from Wardsboro. And Laura Sebelia is her third member, but I don't see her up there.
Not yet.
Anyways, additions or deletions to the agenda? Didn't we have something? No. Members of the public, I guess you're members of the public, you know. Do you have any? You just came to see what's going on? I see Randy, there's somebody on the right-hand side, and there's somebody got their hand up.
Alan.
Go ahead, Alan.
It's always me, isn't it?
No, there's somebody else, a couple others. I can't really see them.
I just had a quick thing that when you guys go through the IB discussion, I've been trying to find out information on how the EL adoption sort of when it went about and how that process worked, because we had just sort of got here, but I don't remember much about it. And I think it's a valuable part of the discussion is just to understand how the whole process went to bring in EL, so that when this decision comes up about IB, that is sort of in there. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, you know what? Under the IB, we'll let Bob talk about that, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. I was just sort of putting it out there for later.
Okay, Randy Johnson, who's next to Meredith?
Carla Quadro, she's our fourth grade.
Okay, and then on the bottom, I can't see who's.
Valerie, she's the 3-4 at.
Okay, so Randy's the only public up there besides Alan?
Yes.
Randy Johnson, do you have anything?
No, Robin's on here too, Richie. She'll be watching. We're all set right now.
Okay,
Thanks.
Francesca can't hear
What's
us, but everybody else seems to be able to, right?
okay. So then members of the staff, we'll let you guys go first since you came live.
I do, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
To add on to what Ellen was just saying, I think that the consideration of when EL and IB were in place is important to consider, and to consider what was here in place at Dover before EL started and before IB started, so that we are aware of those things and not glum them together. I also want to take a moment to share with you some of the concerns that have been voiced by the Dover staff. As decision makers, you guys are deciding our future at Dover and at Wardsboro. And as you know, your decisions will impact all of us. First of all, we ask that you trust us. We're dedicated professionals who work with students every day and understand their needs. Our principal, our counselors, teachers, and staff have valuable insights. Thank you. Into what's working well and what needs improvement. Yet Mrs. Gamache, Mrs. Palumbo, and Mrs. Russ all provided budgetary information as requested, and their expertise was not fully considered by the board. We urge you to trust those who are closest to the students and include their input in their decisions. Did you need me to wait?
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to stare at you? I mean, I can hear you.
Secondly, we'd like you to visit our schools. We've asked many times for you to come in. We've opened the doors for you at graduation and exhibition. If you spend time in our classrooms, you'll see firsthand the essential roles that every staff member plays. I wish I could say that I've seen board members visiting our school regularly, but unfortunately I cannot. We do encourage you to engage directly with our school communities, both here and at Wardsboro, before making those critical decisions. And thirdly, please finalize the budget in a timely manner. Right now, I can speak for Dover, but I imagine at Wardsboro as well, teachers and staff are anxious about their future. We're uncertain whether our jobs will be eliminated or our hours will be reduced. This uncertainty is further compounded by the fact that River Valley votes on its school budget late in the year, creating the risk of losing talented employees who cannot afford to wait for job security. A timely decision on the budget will allow us to plan effectively for next year and to ensure the best outcomes for our students. We ask you to be mindful of these concerns as you make your decisions. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Laura, you have anything?
No.
Do you have anything? I'm not sure who we got on TV because I can't see it very well, but I know I saw Valerie.
Carla Aquadro, Valerie, Greg,
Well, yeah.
and Wendy Johnson.
Do any of you all have anything?
And Laura just joined.
Who?
I'm all set.
Thank you, Valerie. Dana? Dana just joined.
Dana's, that's Dana Cerise.
Yeah,
She's a
but she just
parent.
joined us. She wasn't on earlier, was she? Dana, you have anything for us? Sorry.
No, sir, I was actually gonna put something in writing.
Okay. Excuse me, Wendy?
No, I actually just got the link up and just signed in, so I missed most of what Bridget said. So at this point, I don't. But thank you for asking.
Bridget, do you have that in writing? Can you just leave a copy so we can put it with the minutes?
I have, well,
Or, well, what?
sort of. I didn't read what I wrote
Oh.
entirely.
Well,
I can-
is it okay to just give us
I
that?
can,
if
I
it
can give
covers-
you something, yeah.
Okay. If you can just get it to us and we can
Sure.
attach it to the minutes. Who's off to the left of her, under Heidi? Carla. Carla, do you have anything?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, did I miss anybody?
Katrina.
Katrina, I'm sorry, where's she? Oh, up next to Heidi.
I'm all set, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. So we're in the budget discussion. Greg, you're first, transportation.
Hello, sir.
Hey,
All right, just grabbing a bite to eat quick.
don't choke on it.
No, I didn't. I think I'm good.
Okay,
So Heidi has a document that she shared with you all. That was the information you had asked for as far as what we were projecting and how we saw that potentially working out as savings. I wrote the RFP for the bus bid last week, and I'm hoping to post that this week. And just and again, I put language in there that basically says, we will always do what's best for the district. So once that number comes in, we can then reassess what the real number that we have in writing is compared to what we see here. But based on the projection, that's what we kind of brought up to you last time, and you asked for something in writing. So that's what you got.
okay, does anybody have any questions for Greg? So can you sum it up to, is there gonna, we know we don't have any idea what the numbers are gonna come in at. Where does the number need to come in to make a difference over what we're doing now?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's a lot of projection, but if you look at the current, right? I mean, if we're able to cover Wardsboro with the staff that are at Dover because there's no bus to drive, then that I think that could project out to about a $15,000 a year savings.
Are you guys all set over there? Hang on. Hey, yoo-hoo.
Yeah.
You all guys all set? Because I keep hearing you talk.
Jessica is trying to get into the meeting.
She's probably on the wrong link.
Okay.
She should try.
Okay, so we're gonna hang on a second. Who's trying to get in?
Our Spanish teacher.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Greg. I can't see, but I can hear.
Yeah. So the way it works out is it looks like, given the amount of overtime we're accruing, that, and if we can get that number in there in the low 90s range to get the transportation done and no longer use the contracted service for Wardsboro, then it looks like we could save as a district, save about $15,000 a year.
Okay, so that's the number on the back page.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody from the board have any questions for Greg? You all set?
So it's that, essentially the savings is we no longer need overtime, and then someone from Dover will be doing the work in Wardsboro building? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah, and then you would no longer have the contracted service. So basically they would take, between those two staff members, they would cover both buildings, custodial and maintenance.
Okay.
Good. Eli or Mike?
I'm just a little bit curious. With the reduction of Wardsboro maintenance, does that mean that Mr. Hescock would no longer be working there, or?
Means that he's not our employee, he's a contractor.
Okay.
So it just means that we would not renew that contract, yeah.
Okay.
You all set, sir? Mike?
Yeah, and how many people do you suspect will be bidding on this? Is there a threshold of how many?
When we So we put it out, we get the bids, whatever comes back is what comes back. And then if it's fewer than 3, then we as long as we can show the state that we went through the formal bid process, then they usually provide a bid waiver. So in the spec, I have it going to West River Transportation, Travel Cuz, and J&J Transit. So I have to provide the vendors that I send it to, and then we publicly advertise it, and sometimes you get people from that as well.
Thank you.
Sir?
Do you have one more question?
No. You gotta hold on a second. Laura or Kate?
Yeah, I apologize, Rich. I was reviewing the documents earlier today, and I still am finding that I'm not quite sure what we're talking about here. Are we talking about going down a half a person? Can Greg just explain it again?
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Yep. So Laura, what we're talking about is potentially putting out a bid to contract out the transportation for Dover. And what that does is it frees up the current driver / custodian to be a full-time custodian. And with 2 full-time custodians between Dover and Wardsboro, we think that we could then no longer need the contract service. And so that's where the savings comes from.
And you feel confident that you will get someone to take that contract, that there will be bidders?
We've had one person gave us a budgetary quote that they would be interested, which was J&J Transit. Todd may put something together from West River. If they don't, then then the market kind of spoke. We're not, just by putting the bid out, Laura, we're putting language in it that even if the number doesn't come back as something we're comfortable with, we still don't have to move forward with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Kate, you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, Dwight, go ahead.
I don't know if it's early in the process or not, but does J&J, do they provide transportation to other schools, or could we get references from them, or is that part of the bidding process?
He drove for Travel Cuz for years and then just bought a couple of buses and started working for himself about 1.5 years ago. He's currently substitute driving over in Twin Valley, and he's driven many, many sports trips for West River. So he's pretty well known around. He's a local guy who's been driving bus for a long time, and I think he just kind of saw the opportunity that between Travel Cuz and West River and all of Southern Vermont, there's not a lot of competition. I know even for Twin Valley, they just have a couple of local small contractors, similar to how we operate. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any? So my only thought on the budget is it's only a difference of $15,000. So why don't we wait and see where the bid comes in at? If we do wind up deciding, since we do meet live and have a live vote, if we do think we're gonna make that change, then we can just present this at, we can present it at the annual meeting. Because if it's always easier to not spend money than it is to spend money we weren't authorized to spend. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Kate and Laura, you both good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's our transportation, multi-age classroom discussion. Bob, who's handling that for you?
Well, I presented last time my thoughts on it. You guys asked me to prepare. So I think you guys want to revisit it. I think I included enrollment projections for both schools for next year. And I think Tracy has some thoughts about it as well if you want to inquire further. But so just to wrap up the conversation from last time and see the enrollment projections.
Okay, go ahead, Tracy.
So I'm just gonna read what I have. I've done some research, so I'm just gonna read what I surmised. So while I've thoroughly researched the benefits of multi-age classrooms, spoken with the superintendent, the director of student services, my classroom teachers, and considered our specific student population, I do not believe this is the best approach for our school at this time to combine the 5th and 6th grades. Multi-age classrooms definitely offer notable advantages. Older students can reinforce learning. I took some of these things right from the communication you got from Bob last week. It can provide better understanding of student needs, the teacher having the students for a couple of years. Although it does definitely offer some challenges, particularly here at Dover School, we currently operate with straight grade classrooms, and having one classroom that has a multi-age a teacher in a building of single strand, it lends itself to some challenges. Can be some inconsistencies in our instructional delivery, and we've spent a lot of time researching EL education and Bridges math, foundations, and illustrative math, and to then combine those after we haven't could provide some challenges. Without
We pause you there for a second.
Yep.
Explain to them the difference between the two math programs that you just mentioned.
Okay, so the 6th grade currently has adopted across our supervisory union illustrative math, which is kind of the next step off of Bridges, whereas our 5th grade, even pre-K through 5th grade use the program Bridges math, and so they're two separate programs in one classroom, whereas, while they have the same inquiry-based model, the delivery is vastly different, where the approach is generally mostly online for 6th graders. Lots of digital work, and 5th grade is not. It's more consumables and discussions and manipulatives and things like that. So there's that difference. We also have, without going into too much detail, a pretty complex group of students who have a number of diverse needs in that room. If I look at the children in that room next year, it would be 14 students with 13 plans. Now, that doesn't mean that 13 students have plans, but there are 13 different educational plans in that room, would be in that room. So meeting those diverse needs would stretch resources, and it may not provide the level of instruction that these students would require. I taught multi-age classrooms before. I think that they can be successful. I see them being successful in Wardsboro under the right conditions. And I only looked in the upper grades because we had a conversation about how you know, our early readers are super important, and we want to keep those classrooms with their literacy instruction as a straight grade. So I didn't look to combine any lower grades.
So just to highlight I just want to highlight one thing you said. So the learners that you talked about that have that diverse need, that's if 5 and 6. If next year's 5 and 6 were in one room, that's what it would look like.
Correct.
And that percentage of kids with plans, if you took any other 2 grades and put them together, would that percentage be as high in this building?
No.
So it's that particular two is what you're saying. Is that particular 2 groups
yes.
next year are excessively
Yes.
have needs.
Yes.
I'm trying to say it in a nice way.
No century? Okay, anybody from the board? Any questions? Good, Joyce? Try it, Laura, but you're breaking up a little bit.
Worse than yet. See, gotta get to a better place.
Why don't we skip over to Kate quick if Kate's got anything? Or wait for Laura to get to a better place? Are you all set, Kate?
Sorry, it just took me a minute to get the mute button. So thank you for doing gathering some data, because I think that's the biggest part that we need in this to move forward and see if it makes sense or doesn't make sense for Dover. And you know, we are definitely looking to Tracy, Bob, and Francesca to give us some input on this, because you know they are the educational experts. So thank you for gathering data, and we appreciate that.
Okay, are you set then, Kate?
Yep.
Laura, did she go away?
I don't even know if she's on here.
I don't see her anymore.
No, it looks like she got lost service. She was on her phone.
Okay. I have 1 or 2 quick questions.
Oh, she's back.
Okay. Laura, can you hear us? Not much better, is it?
Richard?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. I did not hear Kate's question, so hopefully I am not duplicating. I did review the minutes from the last meeting and other materials about our projections for next year. So I wanted to start with that. I want to confirm that we were looking at 104 students projections for next year between the 2 buildings. Is that right?
It's 108 without counting 3-year-olds.
108 in both buildings?
Yep, that's what. 68 and 40.
Well, and this doesn't make sense because I think Tracy gave us a different number. This is showing 15 projected in 5 and 6, and I thought you said you gave.
I said 14.
Yeah.
So I mean, their projections.
It's going to change a little bit over the summer. Okay, Laura, yes. 108.
Okay. That might be the smallest number I have seen at the Dover School, 60 some odd students during my tenure there. You correct me if I'm wrong, Rich. The other question that I have is, I guess it's for Bob, as the superintendent for both buildings. 2 things. First of all, in the past, when we had combined classrooms in Dover, we had a 4-5 and a 5-6. Was that something that was considered by the team, or was it just considered to combine 2 grades?
Well, let me correct that while Bob is thinking, because what we used to do was it was 4, 5, and 6. We would go with the recommendation of the staff and the administration how they wanted to run that, because if you remember, there were times when we would have a 5-6 combination, sometimes it was 4-5, and sometimes it was a 4-5 and a 5-6. Some of the stronger students in 5th grade maybe go up towards 6th grade, and some of the other ones would maybe be in the 4-5.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had multiple different variations, and I heard Tracy's discussion about the number of plans that would be in a classroom of 14, 13. So that sounds like one of the grades already has a classroom of plans. So I'm failing to see, I guess, combining classrooms. Anyway, was there a consideration for looking at, multiple classrooms as opposed to just two, combining two classrooms?
Not sure I know what you mean, Laura.
So she's asking, was there, just saying that we're going to have 2 staff members and we're going to teach 3 grades, 4, 5, and 6. You guys break it up however you want.
Yeah, we did not consider that because I had no idea that's something that Dover had done.
Okay, that's fine. And then here's the part that I'm struggling with. And that is that we operate a district that has 2 schools. One of those schools has combined grades and the other one does not. And I am looking for our educational leaders. I'm hearing the recommendations against combined grades. That's challenging for me when we have another building that we're operating that has combined grades. And I'm very curious, honestly curious, about how we can have both of those things be true.
Yeah, in my presentation last time, I thought I tried to give a pretty level description of the benefits and downsides of doing it. And I think Tracy echoed that today as well. I think what I heard Tracy say was that in general, it can be a positive that she in fact herself has taught in it, and she knows it can be successful. I think the challenge that she's highlighting is that given the projection next year of, again, because it's a small number of students, I'm trying to be careful how I phrase it, but that it's a particularly needy group. Is that a fair way of putting it, based on the number of IEPs and 504s? And that if that wasn't the case, having a multi-age might be a good solution. But by looking at the individual students and trying to be paying attention to that, that's where she went in the other direction in her thoughts about that. I think does that make sense?
I understand. I understand what you're saying. It is challenging. We had a model in the Dover school where we were always striving for excellence, and also a system that could flex, and where we were working together to have a taxpayer-friendly budget that was offering excellence, and where we were aligning classrooms in a way that we did not, make it, we weren't making decisions based on individual students. We were making, kind of system-wide sustainable decisions. And when we are looking at 60 students in our 68 in Dover, I want to make sure I get the number right.
Yes, currently 71, yeah. That includes the 3-year-olds, right? Yeah, so this 68 is projection for next year with no 3-year-olds included. So yeah, we're around, let's call it 70. We're around 70.
How about if so with the deepest amount of respect for everyone, I would like to be accurate in the numbers, and we keep getting different numbers. And so I'm going off the numbers that I saw that were sent to the board yesterday. So it's challenging to receive information and then hear different information. So the projections next year for the Dover building are 68.
Which is for pre-K 4 through 6. It does not include 3-year-olds because that number is unknown at this time.
And that's what the projection, Laura, showed enrollment by grade. It showed 68 plus any pre-K 3 students.
68 in Dover, plus any pre-K students, and then 40 in Wardsboro, plus any pre-K students.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this does not feel sustainable to me, and it doesn't feel like something, it feels like we really need to dig in here, folks. It does not feel like we are, I'm worried, and this is going to be very challenging for me to vote for this without some sort of strong ballot language, making recommendations to voters or asking for help from voters, but we're going in the wrong direction with our population. We need to make some changes in order to be able to give ourselves room for increased investment and sustainability. I'm going to pause.
So you're all set, Laura?
I am.
Okay. So just Tracy or Bob, with this 5th and 6th we have, and knowing that there's some needs, and I think Bob, you shared something, but I didn't see it today, and I thought it was going to be part of the packet, was the poverties and the plans, and I think we can share that in public, can't we? Because that doesn't have specific names.
Yeah.
But so just kind of review that, because I think that's important for us.
Yeah, I mean, I can get the exact numbers, but the gist of it was in response to a question that Kate had asked me, and the gist of the numbers was that the Wardsboro school had a lower percentage of free reduced lunch, which is the indicator for poverty, and simultaneously a lower percentage of IEP students at the same time. And both those gaps were bigger than I expected, I think. And so I shared that data with these guys. I can pull up the exact numbers.
I just think that's an important factor.
Yeah.
In that we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, that's been, ever since I've been on the board, Dover's always run high in poverty and high in special ed. And one of the things I shared with Bob today in a conversation on something else was that, there was a time that I spent 2 full days in the building with people from UVM who were hired by the state to look at why Dover's special ed was so out of whack. So super high, our spending and our plans and the way we did things. And part of the thing that Laura was talking about with the grouping was, I remember, I can't remember the exact terminology we used, and this was just in the Dover building for Wardsboro, was that we did not want to have accidental groupings, because for a while we were going with whatever 2 grades were the closest, gave us the lowest number we would combine. So for a while we were going 2nd, 3rd grade was combined, and then 3rd and 4th, because that 3rd grade was smaller, however it was working out. So we actually wanted to come up with a plan, not so that the administration, the board, and everybody every year would have to look at numbers and try to figure something out. So we came up with to prevent accidental groupings, but we also wanted to be flexible because at one time we had 2 teachers in one classroom for less than 10 kids. Maybe it was 12 kids, 2 full-time teachers plus special assistants. So we tried to come up with a plan that would flex and do what was best for everybody. we got away from that during IB because we were told that during IB, IB wasn't conducive towards running multi-age classrooms, and that it was probably not the best thing to do. And then, so now we're also looking at maybe not having IB. So I don't think we have time right now to make some huge changes. But I do think we need to look at that because even when our test scores are really well, our poverty level is still up. It may not have been the highest in the district, but I know when I first started on the board, we were the highest poverty because we qualified for the most, we had a lot of reimbursements from Medicare, Medicaid, I get them mixed up. You know, so we've always been in that boat in this building. Wardsboro, I can't speak to historically, maybe could a little bit more, but it does create some issues. And again, there's a lot to do with how we historically have done stuff and what people expect. So I think.
So I have the actual numbers if you want to.
Yeah.
Want to have them?
No, I think maybe you can send them out, but
Sure.
go ahead. Just.
Well, I was just saying, I mean, so Dover's free reduced lunch rate was 41%, and Wardsboro's was 29%. So it's 12 percentage points difference. For the IEP percentage, Dover was just a hair over 26%, and Wardsboro was 18%.
Okay, so explain something else too that I think is really important for people to know, and I don't know if Tracy would have this information or Francesca, but you maybe. When we changed over, when it was no longer the individual district's responsibilities for programming, and I know we could get reimbursed if there was an IEP, but a lot of students are 504, which doesn't get reimbursement, but it identifies them. So we went away from that in the Dover building, and we went towards an educational support system. I think we called it ESS. Now I think he called it MTSS, because we always want to change letters to keep people on their toes and confused. So we invested in this building a lot of money towards that to help prevent having people on plans, which kind of backfired a little on us because then we started not having the students on plans, so we started losing reimbursement from the state, but we were spending money elsewhere, but we were seeing some good results in our scores. So who covers those kind of things?
Yeah.
Because some of that's covered by the district, and some of
That's a
it's
great
covered
question.
by us. And one more quick thing, and you can answer. In this 5-6 combination that we're seeing for next year, how many other adults are in the classroom besides the teachers?
I'll let Tracy handle that question, but let me start with the first part. So the system that you describe is in essence what our AST teachers are here to do. And the AST teachers are general ed, in other words, accessing kids when they need those lower level interventions outside the classroom or sometimes inside the classroom. But doing it in essence to prevent, as you said, from needing an IEP later on. Close those gaps early. ASTs are paid through the MTSS budget of the SU. A lot of letters I just threw at you there, but hopefully you guys follow that. That money is not in your local budget except through the assessments from the SU. So that and those services are dispersed just like special ed are dispersed throughout the SU. So you guys pay your share based on the percentage of kids that you have in the district, and those services are done through the AST. So yeah, that essence, I think it had sort of gone away, but when Jen came on board, she rebuilt that system, created metrics for it, created what we call a local common assessment plan, which described what it's supposed to be when you do this, if this, then that, laid all out how this process works, which is the MTSS system for academics. And that's pretty well developed, and the teachers know what that looks like, how they follow it, which assessments they give. The ASTs come in and help and support and do interventions with kids. So that answers the first part, I think, of your question. Second part is how many adults are in a given room at a time.
I mean, it depends, particularly on the lessons giving. If we know that there are some academic needs, we have some general ed paras who will go in and out based on the lessons that are being taught. We do have a special educator who pulls for individual education services, but primarily it's the classroom teacher.
And some students may have one-on-ones in addition to that, potentially. I mean, they could. I'm not
They
saying they do.
could.
They
No,
could.
so I'm asking specifically,
Yeah.
do we have any, for this proposed 5-6 next year in the Dover building, are there any full-time paras in that?
Not on a regular basis.
No.
Okay, well, I mean, that's an important factor. If you had 3 paras in there full-time, I mean, that makes a little bit, that gives the teacher a little bit less of a
Well, yeah, a little less demand, yeah.
yeah.
There, the other, I mentioned the ASTs, but the other support mechanism that you guys have as well is you do have a school-wide para paid through special education that supports Dover as a whole, and that person can be dispatched by Tracy's, direction to a classroom, help push in with a kid, help pull a kid out, do whatever they need to do in that regard as well. So she has access to that level of support too. In addition to
But
the
that's just not just Tracy, I mean, the classroom teacher can.
Yeah, I mean, there's only
request-
one, so Tracy has to.
So we have one
figure out how it works.
special education para who supports pre-K through 6th grade.
But that's not in our budget, that's in, we paid.
That would be through
That's
LTSS as well. Yep.
So what about in the Wardsboro building? Can wherever she went to talk about that?
All right, sorry about that. I was having audio problems for the first 20 minutes, so
Well, we were talking about you for the first 15.
I figured you were. So at Wardsboro, we currently have 17 children in the 5-6 classroom. We have 12, I believe, in 3-4. We just got some new students. So, and we have one para that bounces back and forth between them depending on the need at the time. We also have a para in the 1-2 classroom because it needs some support. Let's just say that way. And we have one individual who's half-time AST and half-time special ed. Thus my request for that additional person at Wardsboro for next year, because we're really finding it challenging to work on 2 new curriculums in the classrooms with a multi-age classroom and with the number of kids that we have in each. So we have, and we actually are cutting back one para for next year, but we don't have any special ed paras in our building.
Do you have a support person like in the Dover building that Bob was talking about through central office?
AST.
Yeah, AST.
We have one person that she's 50% AST and 50% special ed. So she's got to, balance her time between both.
Okay, so we've gone around, we've all asked some questions about multi-age classrooms, so we're gonna go around one more time. Anything?
I mean, I just want to thank you all for doing all the work and trying to review this. I guess my only question is, at what point, as administrator, I'm not sure if this is for who, at what point, if the numbers continue to decline, do you think it would make sense to have combined classrooms?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you approach it. If you approach it as Rich described from a systemic standpoint, then there is a number that's probably too small to have an individual classroom. And I think teachers can tell you that if sometimes when classes are too small, it's actually worse in certain situations because the social interactions and there's fewer peers and it's hard to pair kids and group kids to do different things cooperatively. So that can be bad. So that's one way to think about it. And I don't know, the state's currently talking about minimum class sizes, so they may tell us what that number is at some point. But if you're looking at it from the individual kid standpoint and the kids as a group, then that's going to vary probably, but probably still not too far off from what we're talking about. So, I mean, it's crazy because you think about there are places where there's other states that have 30 plus kids in a classroom. Like sometimes that's standard and they might have other adults there for support, but like sometimes there are places that's just what happens. That's not the case in Vermont. It's not the case in New England in general. but Vermont is definitely, we have smaller class sizes in Vermont than, I mean, we're the smallest in the nation as far as our student to teacher ratios, which is part of why the state is looking at all these changes. The challenge, though, remains to be rural areas. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anybody in this room that could look at the two schools and look side by side and go, like, why isn't that one school? Well, the reality is they're not one school because you have like one dirt road that connects them on one side, which is, you know, in certain conditions, and you have one paved road that you have to go through another town on the other side. So it's like geography, topography, like it's not ideal to consider it if these two towns this whole area was flat and there was a series of roads that connected them. I think it'd be a much easier conversation. On the other side, you have Wardsboro School, which is located at the furthest northern part, almost in Jamaica. So it's not even centrally located within Wardsboro. So like, you take all those things together, and I mean, if you take all that off the table, yeah, this should really be one building, right? Be way more efficient, but there's so many layers of that are complex. To Laura's point, I can see why she thinks it's not something that's sustainable, and it's challenging for sure.
Well, with us keep going down and having families tuitioning their students out, that's what's making it unsustainable.
Yeah.
How many parents?
Well, there's also there are literally fewer people too. That's the other piece, right?
But again, when we don't even, there was a time when we had one homeschool child in this town.
Right.
And, you know, and now we're having families tuitioning out in the elementary school that are paying money to go somewhere else and to not attend here. So we don't get that count. So that hurts too. And I don't know how many there are, but, you know, add 5 more students that are being tuitioned out, and, you know, then your numbers look better. You're good. You all set? Anything for you?
Well, I think we tried the combined classroom last year, right? Here?
2 years.
It was last year.
Wasn't last
Mr.
year? Oh, yeah.
Quadro, veteran teacher, one of the best, top 10, ace. And it just, there's a reason we didn't go with it. And for budgetary issues, if you, so many other places to cut than a classroom teacher, in my opinion. There's a reason we went back. We only tried it for 1 year. And it was not, you know, anything to do with the teacher. Phenomenal.
You all set? Yes, sir.
Looking at these numbers, I would say at least for the next 4 or 5 years, it would be really challenging to have a combined class. Because, yeah, next year the numbers make sense just that way, but it doesn't make sense to let go of a teacher and then try to rehire another one in a year and retrain. Because after next year, you're going to jump to 21 students in that room, and then 24, and then 24. That gets into numbers that I don't like in a classroom, personally.
Thank you.
So,
You know, good thoughts?
yeah.
Kate?
I think Eli brings up a really good point that like it's not just looking at next year, but it's looking at future years too. And like next year would be a very reasonable size class. I mean, it's the same as what's in the Wardsboro building, 15 kids. But then the years after that, like it would be some larger ones, and like to let a staff, to have to restaff something after 1 year would be really tricky. So, and I thank you for sharing the data on like the demographics of the two towns and the different like educational plans, because I think that's also a weight that needs to be in the decision too. I don't know what the highest number of ed plans have been in one of the combined classrooms in Wardsboro, but I think that's something we should always keep in mind. And I like that Francesca's bringing up the part that they are staffing next year to kind of make sure that we have coverage, because this year with the change in the educational curriculum, it has been tricky, and that we're taking steps to ensure that those Wardsboro kids are getting what they need in addition to everything else. So I think it doesn't make sense to combine at this point in the game based on the long range forecast.
All set, Kate?
Yeah.
Thank you. Laura, you're still with us?
Yeah, I am. I have a question actually on the data around free and reduced lunch. And it kind of piggybacks on your question, Rich. So I don't recall, Bob, how that is calculated. Is that calculated on the actual students that are in our building?
I believe so, yeah. I think it's based on the building.
So it's not the population of the town, it's the population of the building.
Correct, right.
And so if we had families that were not free and reduced lunch eligible, that were paying to not send their kids to the school, that would be having our number, that would make our number be higher.
As a percentage, yep, that makes sense. I see what you're saying.
Could we just check that? Because it used to be, we would encourage families to fill out the paperwork for free and reduced lunch, even if they didn't want to have lunch, just because it would help our numbers. And then I thought a few years ago that changed, and it was more based on a census, not so much what paperwork got filled out.
I think there's still some analysis that happens through the food program, through the direct cert count that they do. And to be honest, like that's one of the areas I don't know a ton about still. But I know that when the universal food stuff happened, it did change how they had to do it, but we don't have to fill out the long forms anymore, but there's still a shorter version that parents still are asked to fill out.
And is that, can we just find out? Because
Yeah, I can get more info on that. Heidi may actually know the answer to that.
That's why I was looking over at Laura. Laura, hang on one second. We're going to get an answer on that from Heidi.
I have another question.
Okay, well, we'll get
Along
back to
the
you.
lines.
Yeah, you won't lose your spot in line. Heidi, can you just answer that?
So there is no application for free and reduced, and the state of Vermont is collecting that information in other ways and giving that information to us. It's based on Medicaid. It's based on what families in Vermont are making. So I do think it's involving more than just the enrolled students, although it is, the information we get is based around our schools, but it is done very differently, and it's definitely not, the information is not as clear as it used to be when people filled out applications for free and reduced. And we had sent out a household income form, which was the first time this year that people didn't really respond well to. So I feel like there's room for error in some of those numbers, but most of it is based on census and Medicaid billing from the state.
That's what I kind of thought too.
Okay.
But Laura, thank you, Heidi.
Yeah.
Laura, go ahead.
Thanks, Heidi. So it would be great to just get the data points that are going into the calculations that we're reporting at the next meeting. That would be awesome. And then the other question I had is, what is the population in terms of inter-district choice right now? Do we have any Wardsboro kids in the Dover building or any Dover kids in the Wardsboro building?
Yes to both. I don't have an exact number off the top of my head, but yes to both.
Can we get that? Heidi, is that something you have easy at your access?
Do the principals have that information?
I could, if you give me a few minutes while you're talking, I can figure it out pretty quick.
Okay, Laura, are you good then? And she'll get that to us?
Sure, yeah. So is this the end of the multi-grade classroom?
No, I get to go again.
Okay. Well, if this is the end before we get to you, I guess I have to say that, we are making a number of choices that are increasing the cost of education in these two buildings for our taxpayers. And I feel like we are not trying hard enough to be creative around ways we could ameliorate that and the impact on taxes. We have, real instability facing us from DC. I think it behooves us to be as creative and careful as we can be to protect as much of what we have as we can. And I am going to have a really hard time voting for this budget. I've been on this board for 2 decades and have never voted against a budget. If we cannot even make recommendations to our taxpayers, and ask for their feedback. We have a lot of administration. We are sending more dollars out than we need to pay kids to private school. And we are really struggling with ways that we could arrange our and help our tax rates and keep that high investment in our schools. And so those 3 things we're really struggling with, it feels like, to make any progress on. And I know we've been really good with our funds. We've got a lot of reserves over the support.
I think she's gone. Laura, I think you're gone. Hello? Okay, well, I'll let her finish as she comes back. So my comments would be that I think Mike, for only been on the board for a couple of years, is made a very good point. But I have it a little different. When we had the different class configurations and we had to combine 4, 5, 6 with 2 staff members, that was not an accidental, that was not a budgetary time decision. That was a decision based on an education plan. And we got away from that at some point in the past. And I'm not gonna guess why. But I don't think us just trying to combine classrooms right now is the way to go. I think Eli made a very good point, and we've always had this problem in Dover. We have ups and downs. We had the bubble class back in the late 80s, early 90s, where we had 2 teachers, so one teacher kept moving up every year because then that bubble class just became our smallest class. It's always so hard to predict the future. Unfortunately, we cannot staff at the end of we can't staff in September when we actually know we've had class numbers change by 15% from what we projected at budget time to when we actually start school in September. I do agree with Laura that we maybe should charge our administration to look at some changes in how we educate, because we're seeing more fluctuation now than we did pre-COVID. It seemed like things were pretty even for a while, and then it seems COVID boosted our numbers, and then our numbers dropped, and the numbers are all over the place. I am concerned that we're losing students in the elementary school to other schools, and that parents are paying tuition, because that's something, this is a new thing. I've never seen that before. And that loses us money, and that loses us income. So I really think that for us to make a change just based on budget at this time is a mistake. But I don't think for us to look to the future for some changes is wrong. And I mean, that, I did put that in the warning to have start a discussion. And I think that we've kind of put everybody on notice with our discussions over the last 2 months that things aren't going to continue the way they are. Laura talks about changes in DC, bigger changes coming under the Golden Dome in Montpelier. You know, we don't know what they're going to do. You know, I know the 5 districts are out. What's the latest? 12 districts, you know.
It was 9 or 10, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, and we've always gotten the short end of the stick in the valley, in the Deerfield Valley, in the West River Valley. We've always been controlled by, you know, Brattleboro and the Connecticut River Valley. You know, I've always joked that every voter in Dover, Wardsboro, Townsend, Newfane can come out and vote. And if 5% of the voters in Brattleboro and Putney show up, we've lost. You know, they're going to carry the vote. So I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I don't think we should. I think the multi-age classroom is not a discussion that should get shut down, but I don't think it's something we can plan for this year. I shouldn't say this year. I don't think it's something we can put in the budget for this year, the budget we're doing now for next year. But I do think that we really need to look out forward over the next several years. And we really need to do, because again, you know, you just look at these numbers, just in Dover alone, you know, you got 6, 9, 12, 12, 12, 7, 6, 4. Now pre-K, you don't always get them in. You usually get more, you know, in kindergarten. But again, you know, we're going to be looking at it big time in a few years. You know, one of our missions has always been to keep the primary grades to smaller, so we get the kids reading, so we can have all our students, you know, at grade level or better reading. For a while, our students were 1 grade ahead. You know, now I think we're struggling to even get them on grade. So unless somebody has a real issue and really wants to push it, I think we should just, for now, I think the multi-age classroom goes away discussion for now in the Dover building. But I think we need to look at it for both buildings in the future. Does anybody have a problem with that? You good? You guys good? Kate, are you good with that?
I'm good with that. Did you still want to leave it open for discussion in the, sorry, I'm looking ahead to the future in the articles?
No, it'll be, I think, when we discuss the articles, we can. I just don't see, I guess what the point I'm trying to make, and maybe I didn't make it very well, is that I think for the budget we're proposing, I don't think we would be wise to propose something other than what we currently have.
Agreed.
Okay, Laura?
Yes. Can you hear me, Richard?
Go ahead, you're good.
Yeah, I don't agree. It is clear to me that, well, I shouldn't say it's clear to me, but it seems clear that that is not the majority position. I'm happy to move on. I would love to know if there is actually a majority wish to look at this issue for next year, or you know, at our annual meeting in some more formal way.
Yeah, I think that's what I said, Laura, and I think I had agreement with everybody, was that it's not for the budget we're going to present this year, but that we can have I do propose an article that I didn't word very well because I want input to discuss some changes, and I think that that we need to look forward, but it can't just be a decision based on budget.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I hear the board saying, most of the board saying they cannot do that this year, but I'm not sure that I hear the board saying they want to look at it for next year. I hear you say that. I am saying that.
Well, and I think we cover that under the agenda for the warning for the annual meeting. Does anybody disagree with that?
The rest of the board's disposition on looking at multi classrooms in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think delivery of education in the district, yes. But we can, when we get to the annual meeting warning, we can have that discussion at that time.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Is everybody ready to move on? Can we beat that horse anymore? You all set, guys? Okay.
Rich, can I just answer Laura's question?
Oh, sure.
So from what I can see, on our, program that keeps track of students, there's 4 students from Dover going to Wardsboro, and there are 2 current students from Wardsboro going to Dover.
And you know why I find that so interesting? When we formed the River Valleys, everybody was so scared that all the students from Wardsboro would want to come to Dover. So, cool.
Thanks, Heidi.
Okay.
You're welcome.
IB discussion. Bridget wrote a letter with a bunch of signatures. Well, not signatures, but names. And she read it to us last meeting. We asked for, or I think it got sent to us, but it was kind of late before the meeting. So we asked that, and we didn't want to put our administrator in the Dover building kind of on the spot. She was aware of it, and I think she is was going to speak to us about the financial implications. So I don't see anything in the packet, but do you have something, or I don't know if that's Heidi or Bob. I don't know these.
Well,
Tracy worked with
Bob,
Heidi.
I worked with Heidi on it.
Heidi.
I gotta find my papers. Hold on. Got a lot of papers over here. I do want to say, however, that when Bob had asked me to, have in my back pocket some things that I thought would, I could reduce the budget with, that would have the least impact on students. This was on my list that I had. So the budgetary implications are about, I gotta put my glasses on here. It's about just about $40,000. It's like $36,500. So the coordinators, it's approximately $13,000. IB dues and other charges is approximately $21,500. We have a computer system that we use to house the templates and the programs and the for teachers, and that's about $2,000 for a total of about $36,500.
Okay, does anybody have any comments on that? Kate, go to you first, since we've been hitting in-house.
So I have some questions. How long has the IB program been at Dover? And have we seen some really good educational outcomes because of having the IB program in Dover? And have you talked to families in the community about this at all?
Okay. Yeah, please.
So I would say since I started teaching here at Dover, which was 6 years ago, it felt to me that there was a mix of how community members and parents felt about it. There were some that were really strongly that it was great, and then there were some that just didn't particularly care for it. It has had some really great student outcomes. And I would say that would have been before my time here at Dover School. So I can tell you about some of the things that I heard. And with the caveat that it worked beautifully and lovely when teachers were instructional designers. So that was the time where IB really shined, where teachers had carte blanche to teach the transdisciplinary themes how they saw fit, and used the Vermont frameworks. This was before Common Core, in my understanding. So they were able to just use the Vermont framework. They were able to design their lessons and they really used what they knew as teachers, their passions, to make things fit. So yes, it did have that. Now, as we've grown and adopted particular curriculums, it's a little more difficult to be able to be that instructional designer when we have to follow a particular curriculum. I don't know, did that answer your question, Kate?
Kind of. If I can summarize it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like that that IB is no longer serving Dover based on the current curriculum that Dover is implementing. Is that do you agree, disagree, or would you modify?
I would modify, because I would say, honestly, when we adopted EL education as our primary language arts curriculum, we had a far better understanding in our building of how to approach that, because the teachers here already were inquiry-based model teachers, which is what IB is. So it's just that the themes don't exactly line up. It's not that IB's no longer, I mean, that's a tough one, Kate, I guess. Honestly, the nuts and bolts of it is that it's not serving the children as much as we would love to, because we're paying for a designation and not really, the money's really not going for the educational experiences of the children anymore, because teachers can't be instructional designers. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
So Kate, if I could too.
Sure.
When this was first brought to the board and to the town, there was, I believe, and Bob, you may remember, the curriculum, what the state was moving towards with the Common Core was kind of based on IB anyways, but we hadn't quite all moved there yet. I don't remember the exact explanation we got, but it was, I know that it was more, I remember the staff had like 2 years they were designing their programs, because we didn't really have a whole bunch of curriculum.
Right.
And so I think what happened was, because there was a little bit of a lag, and we had built the previous several years, we built on, getting the reading down really pat. And some of because at that time, Wyndham Central had 2 curriculum coordinators, a language arts and a math and science. And they had just been hired by the district, and we took the language arts person, and we kind of took all their time up for a couple years. And we worked really hard on that. And then we were just looking to do something that would be a change. And that was a recommendation from the administrator at the time. So it was started under one administrator, a second administrator actually got it implemented, and then it was then here when Tracy got here, and Tracy taught under it. So we've been working on it for almost 10 years, probably a good 10 years, but it hasn't actually been in place. But then when we changed some of our curriculum, like the EL, that kind of did away with a lot of the good stuff that IB was doing to us from what I think you just said.
Yeah, let me add to that a little bit, because of the story, and this gets back to maybe Alan's question at the beginning, has to do with EL, is that what you're referencing is that when Common Core became adopted by the state did not provide a curriculum or guidance around how to develop lessons to meet that. They just said, here's the standards, good luck. And the AOE didn't provide any technical assistance on that. And so what happened?
Surprised.
I know, it's shocking. What happened was that schools and districts scurried to figure out how to do it on their own. And for every school that existed in Vermont, they had probably a different way of approaching that. So, and that had been in place since then. That's the way it's been operating, as she described. So when you guys adopted IB a few years back, it basically gave a framework for how to think about implementing those things. And so this sort of backwards planning of how to take a standard and figure out how to get a lesson there, make it inquiry based and have it be globally, blah, blah, blah. that was, it provided probably for the first time in a long time, the teachers in Dover a framework. So that continued ahead. Meanwhile, the rest of the schools are doing their own thing. So when Jen started researching early literacy, what she discovered, there was a survey sent out to staff and asked, like, what are you using to teach literacy? And it was in the early grades. And there was something like 38 different curricula that people were using across just RSU, never mind anything else. And some of them were like well-intentioned programs. Some of them were teacher design things. Some of them were maybe less good. And so what we were getting was uneven access to kids having quality reading skills. And so then, so last year, my first year as superintendent, I said to her, like, basically, I want to see Jen unleashed. You've identified a problem, and how are you going to solve it? And she did research up the wazoo and came up with the EL rollout. The benefit of EL for an IB school is that it's similar in the sense that it's still an inquiry-based curriculum. It's still based on a lot of the
real world.
Yeah, there's themes. It's current. It's culturally responsive. There's a lot of like global awareness type stuff that's similar to an IB approach, without the stamp, if you will, as Tracy describes it. And so, but because of the nature of that it's a curriculum, that there's actually like a plan of what teachers do, and yes, there's flexibility within that. That wasn't flexible enough, I would say, to do IB the way that IB is intended to do. And so that's where this sort of friction started to come together. How do we do this? So it isn't that a mandated curriculum is sort of taking over and pushing out IB. It's more about, as an SU, we had no singular approach to literacy, and now we do. And now it happens to have a little bit of friction against what was happening specifically in Dover, not anywhere else, but just in Dover. So, but I think from my conversations with Tracy about this and hearing a little bit more about things that are really positive, and you did mention the sixth grade.
Oh my gosh, yeah, sixth grade exhibition would be something that we never gave up here, because it is such, I mean, because I taught it, I can say it, and Bridget does an excellent job with it too. Just to see those kids go from being so timid to really having a passion about one thing that they know they can make a difference in society on is something we would never give up. It has had a huge impact on, and we've got calls from, actually we just got an email, Bridget and I, this year from a kiddo from last year who, thanked us for giving her those skills to be able to be passionate about something and present it in a multitude of ways. And she just really thanked us for giving her child that ability. And she was, leaps and bounds ahead of kids who were trying to get it done in seventh grade, so.
And that concept of a culminating project obviously is not exclusively an IB thing.
No.
And so to maintain that through EL would certainly be something you could do.
Does EL maintain that?
Yeah, they have, I'll let you guys talk.
If I may speak to what the sixth grade will have this year, is they do have some culminating, each unit will have a culminating a project or process, but this next unit that we have will be a design thinking one, so that will tie in with the exhibition really well.
And I've visited a couple other elementary schools. They've had some exhibition things for EL as well, even in the lower grades, at the ends of their modules, if I get the wording right.
Yes, you did.
That parents come into, and it's just kind of cool. So that piece is actually all over the place in EL.
Hey, Kate, does that clarify it for you? You good now?
It does. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for that. Laura, go ahead. You got any questions, comments, thoughts?
Nope. I was prepared to really hate this recommendation, and I actually appreciate the thoughtfulness and explanations, and I'm disappointed, but it sounds like it might be the right thing to do.
think it's important for us to make sure we can explain it well to the voters who invested a lot of money, but that's it.
So Rich, I raised my hand.
Yeah,
So when
Wendy,
there's
hey,
opportunity, I would like to comment.
Wendy, it's the board's turn, okay? Staff was earlier. Go ahead.
The only thing I really have to say is it looks like 17 people were willing to put their names on this, so it can't be nothing. And it sounds to me like even the principal is on board with it, so I don't have any problem with getting rid of it.
Nikki?
Correct me if I'm poorly wrong, which could very well be the case. During the interview committees, I believe you said it's about a 3-year expectation for a teacher to really grasp the IB program. What is the EL turnaround?
So our implementation of EL is a 3-year rollout, similar. Excuse me. Each grade level has 4 modules that they're supposed to do as part of the curriculum. So year 1 we're doing 2, year 2 we're doing 3, and then year 3 we're going to do all 4. And that's provided with coaching and everything else, grade level meetings between cross schools and all that up to help solidify that. So it's still a multi-year rollout.
Yep, but we were the only ones doing IB, so this would be a lot more help from every other one else.
Every school in the SU, yeah.
Only makes sense.
And remember, before IB, there was no central.
Yeah.
Okay. You good? I'm sorry.
Excellent.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify the letter, obviously, Eli mentioned it's signed by a whole bunch of people, but not by you guys. So I want to make sure that if I ask a question, are you in agreement with this as well? And is that something that you're recommending to the board, or is this just something coming from the teachers?
I want to defer to Tracy on that only because the first time I saw this was in the board meeting. So,
okay. That's when I saw it too.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't know what teachers were even talking about, to be honest with you. So
okay.
I'll let Tracy kind of answer, but she's the one in the building too. So.
Listen, so yes, I did know that my teachers were talking about this, and I was very transparent with the staff when Bob asked me to be thinking about what can you do to eliminate things from the budget, but I was never given a direction to take things out. So this was on my list. I do have something I could read to you that I have had prepared for weeks. But yes, I do know about the letter.
But my question is, are you in agreement with it?
Do I think that we should eliminate the designation?
You agree with the letter?
Yes.
Written? Yeah, okay. So then if I ask a question, I'm asking you.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, I was a bit surprised, just like you guys, but it's having this much support behind it obviously has a lot of weight. And after the merger, or during the merger, it was made very clear to us not to touch IB, how important it was to the school, but I understand also the transition and the changes over the years. One of the things the letter states is the savings, which is always a good thing for some savings. I'm just concerned it's not just savings. In other words, I hope that you're not getting rid of IB in order to save a teacher position, or is it, is it something like, well, this is a way we can save some money, like you're saying on the budget, but is it is that a bonus to removing it, or is it that's something that's the driving force? Because if the first sentence or the first paragraph states right away it's extraordinarily overpriced, and that seems like that was the driver of this move.
So I think I'm not going to speak for them, but I can speak for myself. So being that I taught it for 4 years, I enjoyed it because as a teacher of 24 years, that is how I taught my classrooms with the, it's understanding by design, backwards design, where you take, you go with the end and, you start with the end in mind. And it is quality, good teaching. Some of the downsides is that the money that is appropriated in the budget for it doesn't have a direct impact on the kids. And I think that's where it hurts my heart a little bit. is that, but we intend, I've had conversations with the staff, we intend to keep the tenets of it. Like, we love the approaches to learning. We love the inquiry process. We love the capstone project, which is the exhibition. You know, and it fits nicely with conscious discipline, which is something that we also do, is teaching kids to be globally minded and to be, you know, good citizens and to learn how to problem solve. And those are also all tenets of IB. So it is good. I also had a pretty long conversation with Renee Merluzzi, who is our curriculum. She works with Jen McCusick in the district, and she worked also at an IB school, so it was really nice to have somebody to talk to. And she offered to come and, you know, show her support in that she does understand that the money that is, you know, budgeted for IB doesn't have an impact on students. Like, it is merely for the designation, because you can take all of the tenets that it has and keep it, because it is what good teachers do anyways.
You all set? Okay, my turn. So IB has never had full support of the staff in the building. We actually had staff quit because we implemented IB. IB has never had full support of the board. The board spent, Laura, I don't know, 2 years discussing it, maybe 3 years, before we decided to move down that path. But the problem is we also presented it to the voters, and we put it in the budget, and the voters approved it. So I don't feel that just going based on a letter of the staff that we do away with it, because it wasn't the staff that implemented it, it wasn't the staff that brought it forth, it was the voters that approved it. So I have no problem bringing it over. I actually thought it cost us over $30,000 just for the designation every year. I didn't realize it was only 21. But I think that it's something that I have no problem. It's nothing I'm gonna die on the sword for, but I think it's something that we need to really bring to the voters. And if you look at the agenda, annual meeting agenda, I did put something in there for that. And I think one of the first questions we're gonna ask is, you know, how much it is. So I'm glad we have those numbers. I do just wanna see where they are in the budget, because I remember the stipends used to be in a separate line item, but I don't know where, I couldn't find them, and I couldn't find some of the numbers.
That's a heavy question.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm just saying, we want to be prepared
Yep.
if we do present
Of course,
that.
Of course.
It's interesting you called it the capstone, because that was one of the things that was sold to us. You know, Bridget said, you know, I called it the capstone.
Exhibition, yeah.
Exhibition,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I know a lot of parents are like that, but I think, again, just like I'm not for changing to multi-age classrooms without planning, to me, this letter was more of, I don't know why it was written, to be honest. I don't, but again, if the staff feels that way, I don't mind bringing it to the voters, but I do think that it's something that we should discuss with the voters. And again, if they vote it down, we can then deduct $36,000 out of the budget. And that's one of the nice things about having a live meeting versus a ballot. So I think just a poll straw of the board. Are you folks good with, when we can discuss the wording of the article, but if you're good with putting it in the warning for the annual meeting, then I think we can just move forward. You good with that, Eli?
Yeah.
I don't know if I am.
Okay.
You know, I think we should talk about it some more. I don't know of another time where we brought the curriculum to the.
With the IB program.
I know, other than when you're saying the IB program.
And we also.
Let me finish it.
Well, okay, go ahead. Because we have.
I know, I heard you said it was part of the budget.
Right.
And that doesn't seem to be the same to me. There's lots of things in the budget you could argue are for curriculum. Yeah, I guess it was a line item, but if you're voting on an overall budget, I don't think it's the same as putting an article for specific program to the voters to get rid of? I don't know. I'm happy to hear clarification from you.
Well, when we formed the district too, one of the things we talked about was that to protect the two buildings and to protect what we had, we wanted to not have the same exact stuff in both buildings, because if both buildings are exactly the same, it's very easy for the state to look at the map and say, oh wow, look at you guys are right next to each other. We only need one building, let's close the building. And that's why we specifically went for a different curriculum for which the voters did approve and we discussed with them.
Okay.
So we brought two curriculums to the voters. We brought IB to the Dover voters, and we brought to the River Valley voters the STEAM. And so we have in the past. We also, with central office, we brought to the boards, even though it wasn't the voters, the EL program, because a lot of the other districts were in a lot worse shape than us, and we were looking for some coordination. So we have done that in the past.
Okay.
And I don't feel, because again, it's never been overwhelmingly supported, but it hasn't been overwhelmingly disliked.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we've had teachers quit, we've had parents move out because they didn't like it, we've had parents move in because they liked the program. I will say that one of the reasons we really pushed on this was we thought it may be a selling point. You know, come to the Green Mountains and you can be in an international curriculum. You know, it was originally set up for diplomats and military families, and you know, so that there was consistency no matter where you went to school. And we thought that was really good. And that, again, as Bob helped me with, there was no real good curriculum out there. You know, there was Common Core standards, but there wasn't how to accomplish that. So again, I'm not, like I said, I don't feel strongly one way or the other whether we keep it or get rid of it, but I feel strongly that it shouldn't be our decision. It should be the voters. And just like we ask the voters every year to vote on the Burton tuition rate for all private and independent schools, I think we at least owe that to the voters.
Well, that's required, but we're not.
No, it's not required. We don't have to put it on the agenda.
It's, if we want to have it, it's required.
Right,
to
it's
vote on it,
required,
but we're not required to have this on the agenda if we want to remove it.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
But we're not required to put it on the agenda. And even if the voters brought us a petition, we're not required to put things on the annual meeting agenda just because it was petitioned.
Okay.
So, okay. Laura, Kate, are you good, or do you want to, and again,
I'm good.
You guys don't.
We've always followed the direction. That's why I asked the question. Do they agree with, does the administration agree with this? Because we've always followed their direction. And I understand you're saying, I totally get it. We did vote on this, and thanks for reminding me about the merger, about having two different programs. I just wondered, I like to make sure we're doing the right thing, and if there's so much support within the school and with the administration, it may not be necessary, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is everybody okay? Go ahead.
Can I just want to say something to Dwight. I just want to make sure that Dwight and all of you understand, and thank you for clarifying this. I think that we don't want, I want to make it very clear that myself and the staff don't want to give up that inquiry base. Like, we still want to be known for something, just like Wardsboro has STEAM. Like, we still want to keep this. We just would rather spend our money more fiscally responsible and not pay for the IB designation. So whether or not we say we're not an IB school anymore, we definitely want to keep those tenants.
I mean, yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I will be honest, I'm concerned sometimes when you lose a designation and the requirements go away, sometimes some of those things can go away as well. And that's my concern, but I trust in you and the school. And if that's what you're saying will continue to happen, and the teachers as well, then I hope we continue in that direction.
Okay, then let's move on. Reserve fund discussion. What?
There was somebody on the computer.
Yeah, but we've given staff in public time to speak, so they have their turn. So now the board's got to move on. Okay, warning for annual meeting budget for reserve fund. Heidi, tell us about the reserve fund. You brought us some really good news last time. Hopefully that good news is still here.
Yeah, I think we're still looking very good. I did some more trying to figure out what we have left to pay, what might not be encumbered. I think at this point, it's pretty safe to say you're probably going to end with a $300,000 surplus from the general fund when all the money comes in and your bills get paid. So I think you're in good shape for that. The reserve fund is the 969, 832, and then depending on how you want to handle for next year, you're in good shape.
Okay. I don't know why we put possible action because we don't vote on reserve funds. So
Maybe it was whether or not you were going to use them.
yeah, but that would be under the budget in the warning.
This is for the budget.
Yeah, no, this is a sheet here.
I know, but we got this in our package.
Yeah, because that's when we get to the budget. Okay, so I mean, I guess they kind of both fit into each other. So the FY26 budget, we have another copy of that, right?
It was slightly revised. I got it back to 1.1% increase, but the number might be a little bit different from the previous version.
Okay, so if you go, again, I think we pretty well hammered out the budget. So I think that if you look at this sheet here, folks, the one that's got the draft with estimated state numbers. So to get us into where we're not into the penalty box.
The threshold, yes.
Threshold. Heidi's recommending around $231,000 a transfer. And last year we transferred 220.
That is correct.
So it's not out of the realm of what we usually transfer. Last year we did do our two reserve budgets. We moved half of that. They were pretty large numbers. We haven't funded those at the levels that we funded them last year. But we had the roof to cover and we had quite a few expenses in both buildings. So for this year to cover our reserves, we need to, without raising taxes, because if any of the money for the two reserve lines come out of raised by taxes, obviously we're back into the.
Correct.
I like the penalty box. Why can't we just call it that?
I mean, you can call it the penalty box. We can call it the penalty box.
Okay. So anyways, we're gonna pay a penalty.
Yes.
So I think, I think that, again, we've even though our numbers are lower, our secondary numbers, again, that is always a crapshoot at best. And maybe what we could do is we could buy like a lottery ticket, and if we actually, or maybe buy an insurance policy that if our numbers are off, I don't know. But again, I mean, it's a best guess scenario. Numbers always change. But I think that we are good and we have enough in reserves to be able to fund our transportation capital, especially that we've kind of put the Electric Avenue bus on hold. I think the building, we can finish fixing the roof. I think we can take care of the furnaces in Wardsboro. And I think we can go in. We're not going to be able to the tax rate, the actual tax rate, we're not going to have a lot of control over just because our CLA has dropped again. We don't do anything for we can't affect the CLA. But I think we've done a fairly decent job on trying to get a budget that makes sense without huge changes. And I think part of that is a promise in the future to look at that. So what do y'all think?
Quick clarify.
Go ahead.
quick clarifying question. So the annual increase on this, is that with or without the buy down? Because it says with.
The 1.1% increase is on the expenditure budget. So it's not impacted by the buy down. The buy down will be on the offsetting revenue side. So it just reduces the amount of taxes that have to be raised by the taxpayer.
That seems like bad news. That was much lower. Wasn't the last time we got the sheet on the increase, percentage of increase? That number?
Oh, this number here?
Yeah.
Well, that's because that includes the CLA.
Oh, okay.
Right, and that tax sheet that you're looking at that I sent this week doesn't include the reduction if you were to use any reserve funds.
That's what I was asking. Yeah.
Yes, okay, sorry, that tax sheet does not include that. I wanted you to see it before you made any decisions.
That's good news then. Yep.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
Because we were getting hit hard.
I prepared two of them last time, one with what was needed and one using it to show you the differences.
But this time we only have the one.
Yeah, we have bad.
That is correct. But I can give you those numbers if you want me to plug in some numbers here on my computer.
No, that's fine. So what we would need to do is we would need to vote an expenditure budget. We would also need to then, because we can't vote just what we're gonna raise in taxes because that doesn't allow us to spend that. So we need to vote an expenditure number. We're gonna need to vote on a recommended transfer from the reserves to offset operating. That's a separate article. We're also gonna have to vote to fund the reserve funds. And we're gonna have to, as part of that vote, we're gonna have to vote how we wanna raise those funds. So, I think probably the easiest way to do it would be, and it kind of gets us off agenda a little bit, is if you go to the warning and you look at Article 8, and again, this is where it gets confusing. So last year we voted a $6,845,217 budget. This year we're recommending voting in a $6,920,549 budget, which is up about
1.1%.
Well, but it's around $80,000 more.
Oh, yeah, 75,332.
Okay, well, so 80, so I was pretty close for my fried brain for tonight. Okay, so then we would also do well, we should probably rearrange this. This is how we always do it. No, that wasn't there last year. That was changed. They want us to do the per pupil spending.
Right, so if you tell me, I can give you those numbers right during this meeting so you can plug them in if you want them.
It doesn't matter.
It's up to you. If you want me to reduce, what?
No, let's not confuse things, Heidi, please. Let's just, what we have to do is we have to determine, are we good with the budget? The expenditure budget of $6,920,549. So we've been looking at this number, we've refined it a little bit, we haven't made huge changes. Is that the number we want to ask for expenditures for the school for next year? That includes a new position in Wardsboro, a full-time position with some changes to some other positions, and it's not adding any positions in the Dover building. It's keeping level with the Dover building.
It's actually reducing some pairs in both buildings, and the addition of Wardsboro.
Okay,
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. One each, right? There's one in each building.
So, is there any discussion on the budget? We need to approve a budget number to put in the warning.
One quick question on the topic. So the fund transfer, we're gonna vote on that separately.
We always do.
We always do. Okay. So that won't be in the budget, but then it'll be added to the budget after we vote.
Right, and this is the order we've always voted it in, so people should be somewhat used to it.
Voting in the Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So would anybody, does anybody have any questions on the budget?
I got a quick one, might not be related. I thought there was some building maintenance thing we were gonna almost push down the road until we knew what the state was gonna do. at
Right,
Wardsboro. That's not,
that's a capital budget.
okay.
And we gotta get to that too.
Alright.
But, so this is just the operating budget we need to focus on. So the operating budget is all this stuff in here. There is some building maintenance in here, but it's not huge projects. It's not, the roof is not in the operating budget. But things like small repairs, you know, if desks break, if furniture breaks, if, you know, maintenance on the buses, not doing, but yeah. So what we need to do is we need to vote on an amount to put in the budget to bring forward to the voters.
I'll make a motion.
Sure.
I motion to approve the annual expenses of $6,920,549 for the, what are we looking at?
For the operational
expenses
for
budget,
FY.
FY '26.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the operational budget, which is on the top sheet of your draft with estimated state numbers of $6,920,549 by Dwight, and it was seconded by Mike. Is there any discussion from the board? Kate, you all set? Laura, you all set to vote?
Trying to figure out where the sheet is that Heidi is referencing. It's not connected to the agenda.
It was part of the packet, wasn't it?
Budget, I think it'd be,
It's a draft with estimated state numbers, Laura.
The tax calculations, Laura,
Yep.
it was in there.
Laura, it depends on which version. Like if you are on the PDF version of the thing, those ones are linked into the Google Drive. That one's not linked.
Let me go. Okay. Okay.
Laura, I'm gonna skip you for a minute while we're going around.
Great.
Mike, you all set? Dwight?
All set.
Okay, I just have one comment that again, I just want to stress that this is the number for today. We may find out next week or in 2 weeks that, you know, there's something that, that the state's changing what they do or people, so we always have the ability to ask for an amendment to this number at town meeting or at the school district meeting. And also, we have some articles coming up that would affect that number also. So I think that I'm very, very comfortable with this. I know we're again, it's a very small increase. Our numbers are dropping, but it's always, if you level fund the budget, you're spending 3 to 5%, whatever inflation is. In some of our years, inflation's been over 10%. So I think it's a really good number to bring forward. I think we could make some pretty big changes, but I don't think that's for us to make. I think that's for us to look into with other people. So I think that this was a really good budget for this year. And I would recommend that we vote for this budget and present this to the voters. Laura, have you? Yep, go ahead.
Question.
Shoot.
So I am really interested in the board's disposition, which will be reflected on the warning, about how we're going to be making recommendations to voters going forward. And I know that we have to vote on the budget first. Can I vote against the budget and then vote for the warning?
Oh, yeah.
And can I vote against the warning if the language is not as strong as I think it should be?
Yes.
Is that?
So here's what it is, Laura. Although you could vote against the budget, if the budget passes, that's the budget.
No, I understand that. And I understand that that will then be the board's budget and I will, I mean, that's what it will be. If I could make it so that we could vote on the language in the warning first, it might be that I would vote yes for both. And I understand that that's not possible.
Okay, and I would say we do have a motion and a second on the floor, so I think that, and this is how we warned it, so I would prefer we vote on the budget first. But again, I'm not the end all be all, so what does the board think? We could all vote the budget down and we could move forward to the agenda and come back to it, but again, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Or Bob?
Egghead. My question back to Lori is she talking about Article 8 specifically as far as the language goes?
Yes.
So that language is the language that is required now under.
No, she's looking at the number. And then
I'm sorry.
And then she's asking about language. She wants strong language elsewhere in the.
Yeah, where it says discuss, like that language is not actually, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something stronger from the board.
Because Article 8 language is required by law.
No.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
You okay?
Right.
Okay, is everybody ready to vote? And again, you can all decide to vote no, and then we'll have to go back to it and come up with a budget number later. So, if you're all ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
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 Kate? I'm sorry.
She's nodding.
Okay, it appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is, so congratulations, you have a budget number.
It's a budget.
It's a budget number. Okay, next thing on the agenda was, I think we need to discuss the reserves. I'm sorry, we need to discuss the warning. So again, I did up a warning that we all have. Laura, do you have the copy of the warning that we sent out this afternoon?
I do.
Okay. There are a few changes from the last one because I added an article. The voting by Australian ballot is a different article than it was last time in the last couple of years. So Article 1 is to elect a moderator and set a $200 stipend. Article 2 is to elect a clerk and set a stipend for the clerk and set a stipend for an assistant clerk to be used at the discretion. And then Article 3 is the treasurer and a set a stipend for them. Does anybody have any issues, comments, thoughts on the first three articles? Or are they pretty good? I think just because we're running a little late, I'll just kind of jump through these. Okay, Laura and Kate, make sure you jump up and down if you got something. Article 4 is the same as last year for the stipend for the school directors and the chair. Article 5 is the mileage, which has been pretty standard. Article 6 is another standard one. It's so the voters allow us to take any surplus at the end of the year, which we're projecting to be around $377,244.70. To just put into the general reserve fund, and we've been doing that for years. Hopefully that's pretty much a no-brainer. Article 7, so the voters of the River Valley Unified School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $21,972, which is the Burton sending school tuition rate for the 25-26 school year. Anybody want to discuss that one?
I just have a quick language question.
Yeah.
This is a cap, right? Not
No,
a
this
rate.
is an amount.
But what if an independent school is less?
Then we pay the lesser amount.
So it's a cap, is really what you're saying, right? That happens to be the same.
I don't know.
as-
This is how we're supposed to word it. So
Okay, you've done this numerous.
No, this is
same
this is
language.
not-
Okay, all right. I was just
okay.
curious about that. Yeah.
No, it's up to. Any questions on that one? Article 8. We've got the number there. Heidi, you'll fill in the per pupil spending and the percentage higher or lower than last year.
Yes, do you have to vote on that language?
Give it to me and then we'll have it on air.
Okay, so since it's before using any reserves, the per pupil cost is $17,070, so 17,070.12, which is 16.24% higher.
Now, are you using that to compare that to last year's where we put 220 in to buy down the rate?
I am using last year's that was on the tax summary. I don't believe, that's a good question. I don't believe that, I think that was before add in Article 10. I'm using the number prior to using any reserve funds.
So that's comparing apples to apples.
It is comparing apples to apples.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? And I think we can explain that's really high and this is the reason why it's higher.
So was this language was in last year?
No, the second paragraph is So it
has to do with the threshold coming back.
Right.
That's why they put that in. It used to be back when there was a threshold before this language also
Is it
existed.
required to have
Yeah.
this? It's required, okay. Well, 16% increase with level budget.
I mean, I think a big piece of this is that your per pupil, your long-term weighted ADM was 452 students last year and it's 402 this year. So that's because your per pupil cost was 14,685 last year.
Because we're losing students.
It's huge because of the loss of students.
Okay.
and some other changes. I mean, it's I don't like that language. Me neither. But again, we have no choice. But if you see this on a ballot, people could just say, oh God, I'm gonna vote it down. It's 16% increase is too much, but it's really not a 16% increase.
Yeah.
You know, because people are gonna say, well, my taxes are gonna go up 16%. Well, it could go up 30%, and it's not all our fault. It's because of the CLA and what the people of Montpelier vote for how much we fund. So again, I think it's it's a lot easier to explain it when you don't have a ballot vote. It's just
one more question. It's just as simple as just.
In this case, would it make sense to have the language for what the spending, the per pupil spending and percent of increase would be once you apply the reserves if it gets voted?
Lori, Heidi, I'm sorry. So what we're going to do is you and I and Kay are going to put together a cheat sheet that we're going to be able to hand out to people to show if you approve all the articles, you approve, the recommendation for the budget, you approve the capital expenditures, you approve the moving of the funds from the general. This is what it's actually going to be. And that's what we can do when it's on a ballot vote. Because, when you get a ballot vote, you would just see that question there and you vote yes or no.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. So is everybody okay with that? Again, I don't love it, but, and you know what, Heidi, we got to get that done sooner rather than later because we should definitely have that in the annual report if Bob's paying attention.
Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah.
She's my annual report guru.
I got in trouble earlier because I was reading something else. Okay, Article 9. So we have a recommendation for $400,000 to the buildings, and that was to cover the roof. Is Greg still there? And then we have $40,000 for transportation. That's just to go into the reserve. But we do have some furnaces that Greg feels we should replace in the Wardsboro building. And with the transportation, especially with it going out to bid, we may not need to put in as much. We could probably get away with just maybe cutting back with the bus. So I would be, Greg, how much do you think the furnaces, was it 20 or 30? He's fell asleep. We lost him.
I didn't know. I had kids crying in the other room. So we had 24,013 for one of them, or 39,800 for two.
So 40 altogether.
Yeah.
And we bought the new bus last year. If we were to go to just one bus in the future, how much do we have in the bus reserve right now?
I think you have like 110.
No, I thought we bought them last year.
You had money in there.
91.
Yeah,
91,000.
It was close. It was close.
And we just bought a bus, so if a bus is 120, we can get, how many, have we got 10 years out of them?
I think so. Yeah, we figured we just did one, about a year ago, and it was a 2012. So you got about 10 years out of it.
And we need, how much? We need 400 to finish the roof?
Yeah, I think it was like 330-ish, and then, yeah, I mean, to kind of leave yourself a buffer and increase. I mean, I assume materials have gone up a little bit, so.
So, well, I mean, how much of a buffer? Because if we only need 330, you got a 10% increase, that's 33,460. The other 40, there's your furnaces. We could do 400 and do everything we want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember last year, Rich, you gave me a $30,000 kind of a buffer in there of just in case things came up type of thing. So.
Well, for rot and stuff, but I mean, I think so if we're at 360.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Bob.
Well, I was just gonna say, do you also have a projected surplus this year? Do you want to try to do furnaces on a separate thing, not do it through capital?
No, we should do it now, because then the reserve can get put away. We can't really start it till after school's out anyways. But if we get this approved at the end of April, we can get people lined up, I think. And again, the people know what we're actually approving, what we voted on, and people then have more trust in you when you just don't add things because there's a surplus, like ice cream socials and stuff.
I like ice cream.
I like ice cream a lot too, if you can't tell. But you never offered to buy me an ice cream.
Well, maybe next week.
So, Greg, do you feel comfortable that anything that you need for capital for buildings next year between Dover and Wardsboro, you can cover with around a $400,000 contribution?
Yep.
Okay, and do you feel good maybe cutting the transportation down to maybe 12 or so around there?
Yeah, I think you could cut that down. I mean, you're in good shape. You got a new bus that's running good. We haven't really had much for issues with it. You still have the other two sitting there, right? You know.
One of them we can sell eventually.
Yeah, yep, we could. I mean,
Okay.
if nothing else, right? Even if you get a little bit out of it, you get enough for a, oil undercoat or something.
We won't have enough
Take out.
Well, yeah, but we're 8 years away. We have 100,000. So,
Well, they usually like to have two, one of them. I get it, but just nice to
but
have.
we're also looking at a contract. So if we go with the contract, we wouldn't need a second one.
You never know.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, if I could predict the future, I sure want to be
Yeah,
there.
if we just added, because how much was the diesel? It was like 125, something like that.
It was like 108.
108. Yeah. So
106,
you put
108.
20 into this, and you got it. All right.
Okay, so why don't we do 400 on the building and 20 on trans?
Sure.
Is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Okay. So if we do 420,000, we should, it's gonna cut into, I mean, that's $640,000. That's gonna bring us down around, again, close to under $1 million. We've always shot for 30, not spending more than 30% of the reserves. We're in that ballpark. If everybody's good, I think with the funds coming from the general reserve, we should be covered. Is everybody okay?
Good.
Okay. Next question is, shall the voters authorize the school district to withdraw money from the reserve fund, but not more than? And this is the one where we left it a little lower, because if the legislature decides to increase any of the funding or, you know, increase our student count or give us more weighting or something, that we don't need to transfer it all, but we'll transfer whatever in May when we send the report up to the state that we're required to make sure that we're under the threshold. So Heidi, we're gonna put a number of, why don't we put 240,000? That gives us a little wiggle room. Is she talking or is she looking?
You're muted. She's talking about.
Is she talking to us?
Heidi, you're muted.
Sorry, I was talking the whole time. 240 sounds good. What do you want? I've plugged it in. What information do you want?
Nothing, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the ones I think we're gonna have some discussion on, Article 11 and 12. So Article 11, and again, this was just something I threw together with looking at the letter we had gotten from the staff in the building. And so the voters of the River Valley Unified School District authorized school board to stop funding the IB focus for the Dover building. So what do y'all think? Tell me how you want to word it. Tell me if that looks good. Tell me if it looks bad.
I'm fine with that wording. I would like us to have a rationale from the administration.
Yeah, I think we will have them put something together, and I think we have to have the budgetary numbers so that I think that's one of the first things people are going to ask is what it's going to save. And yeah.
Maybe something like a savings of X.
36, right. And this is where it comes from.
A commitment to continue the principles.
Pardon?
With a commitment to continue the principles of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, that will be in the presentation, but again, you can make the article so confusing.
Yeah.
So what, just for clarity for Tracy's sake, what is it that you want her to prepare to give you guys for the meeting?
Well, we'll discuss that.
You'll talk, okay.
Yeah. She doesn't need to do it right this minute, but we'll give everybody time. So my only question is, do we want to move this article up to make it before we vote the budget? Because if the voters do give us permission to do that, we could then reduce the budget by 36,000 or, you know, whatever. Let's just use a rough number, 40. And we can also then reduce the Article 10 by 42, make a recommendation. Usually we do all the special articles after the big one. And again, I think if we show a cheat sheet that, you know, this is, if you do all this, this is what you actually see. I don't know, what are your all thoughts?
That makes sense to me.
To move it up?
Yeah.
Okay, Kate? She's thumbs up. She's going up.
Going up.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You fine?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Impartial.
I don't know. I kind of think it's fine where it is, but I guess I understand the thinking, but then would that mean we'd have to reduce, then we would reduce that number?
We would ask for a
If it's
friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment?
Yeah.
I mean, the amount is, it doesn't seem so great. To me, it's fine where it is. You'll have savings in next year.
Well, it'll go towards a surplus.
It'll go towards a surplus for the following year.
Right.
So, I mean.
The rates are gonna be the same because we're gonna move less over.
Yeah. For me, it doesn't matter. I believe whatever the board.
Okay, so we have one person floating. We've got 2 people floating. We've got 3 people that are okay.
I'm fine with whatever the board wants.
Okay. So who on the board is going to make this decision?
It's a lot of flow.
You're the chairman, sir.
Yeah.
I like it where it is. People are tired by this article.
I agree. That's a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point.
Okay. So we're going to leave it where it is. And you're all good with the wording. So Article 12, any other business that may legally be addressed, and it's open discussion for informational purposes. Remember that unless you warn something, you can't vote on it. You can't have a binding vote. But you can, it's a time when the board can take input from the public. So somebody can't stand up in this article and say, I make a motion that we give Richie Werner $200,000 a year because he's done such a wonderful job for us. And it wouldn't be able to be passed because it's not there, even if it was $2, okay, because it wasn't warned. None of this is binding, but it is a good time to say, and we have in the past said things, and I just put in these two things: discussion on consolidating none, some, or all of our grades into one building. It doesn't talk about combined classrooms, but I did put discussion on staffing for the future. So it can be pretty general, it doesn't have to be specific. We could put an article that would direct the board to do certain things. Like we could put an article in there to direct the board to form a committee to look into something. But we can also do that anyways, because the other thing you do is if you don't listen to recommendations, even though we, like the school board has bottom line responsibility versus a select board. So if a school board, if the voters at the school meeting cut $100,000 out of the budget, they can't tell us what line item to cut it out of. They can't say, we think you're overstaffed, we want you to reduce 2 teaching positions and it's $200,000. We get that say. Just remember that the voters get a say the following year with how we voted, and if we didn't do it. But we do get to say, where we would reduce that money. Selectmen, unfortunately, they have a little bit more line item responsibility. So there you go. Laura, go ahead. I know you've got comments on this. She must be parked now.
No, yeah, I am. I'm at the State House now. I would really like the board to give the voters some advice about what they should ask us to do in the coming year.
So what advice are you looking for from the voters?
I would like the voters to ask us to come back to them with, again, not knowing exactly what will happen here in Montpelier, it's hard to imagine anything massive in terms of governance. Although I have heard class sizes being floated around, ironically. I would love the voters to ask us to come back to them with a proposal for how to improve the quality and reduce the cost of the education that we are providing for our students. In a declining enrollment environment.
So we can just do that. We don't need the voters to ask.
I understand we can just do that, but we didn't just do that. So.
But I think, Laura, you can't do that when you're in a budget cycle. When you're presenting a budget, it has to start next meeting. And we can just do that next meeting. We can tell people that this is what we're looking to do.
I mean, we could go to the voters and we could say, yeah, I mean, I think we should be looking at ways to, I don't know. We're probably not going to have that many people that are even going to show up to vote.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know. We do need to get an agenda done this week.
I mean, asking the voters in light of declining enrollments, what would they like us are there any specific things they would like us to look at in the coming year, in the coming budget, in the next budget cycle? Maybe just open-ended.
So in light of declining enrollment, the board will look into.
Would like some direction from the voters on.
Well, bear with me for 1 second.
All right.
The board will be discussing consolidate. So how about this? In light of declining enrollment, the board will be discussing in the future, in the coming year for next budget year, for next budget cycle, discussion on consolidating none, some, or all the grades into one building, discussion on staffing for the future, and any other topics that the voters would like to recommend.
I like that.
And that, I think, opens it up pretty good, and I think we as a board can start at the next meeting figuring out how we're going to move those, at least the things that we've identified in the past or we want to discuss for budgeting. Does that work for people? Laura, are you good with that?
Yeah, I actually really like that.
As our newest board member, buddy, are you okay with that or not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a realistic way that we combine the schools into one building, probably ever, but.
But at least we can have that discussion and we can then go to the voters and say, we discussed it, we looked into it, this is what we did, and realistically we don't.
Yeah.
Again, it's not saying that we're gonna do anything,
Yeah.
it's just saying that we will have a discussion, we will look into it, or we'll research it.
Yeah.
So you would be okay with that?
Yeah.
And I don't wanna, the other problem is if we're just gonna go and preconceive that we, combining the buildings is, or combining any portions of the buildings is, then why are we even, to me, that's, you gotta be open-minded about it too.
Yeah, I mean, that mountain isn't going anywhere.
I mean, there was actually some Wardsboro people when we set up the district that thought one building would make sense, but we shouldn't do it in either one of the two buildings that we have.
Okay.
We should look into building a building that would better. Pardon?
In Stratton.
Well, and you know something, I don't think there's anything that says the building has to be in one of our towns either. And maybe that's something we could look into. Maybe we look into the 6th grade going, starting to do tuitioning in 6th grade and then in our stuff in 5th grade. There's all sorts of possibilities. And I think it's been long enough. When did we form the district? I mean, we've been 7 years, right?
More, 2017?
Yeah. So, I mean, and some of the demographics are really changing. The other thing we've wanted to do is set ourselves up to be, and that was the idea behind the two different curriculums, the two different focuses, was to make it that we would have something that. Okay, well, that's for future discussion. I'm sorry. Kate, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Is it fairly standard to have like an open-ended discussion?
We always do that. Well, it's a standard thing. Is usually any other business that may legally be addressed for informational purposes. The last couple years, we've been putting a tickler in there just to kind of.
That's a lot of pressure on the moderator, though, to keep it.
It really isn't. It's
not binding, it's just a conversation.
Well, but everyone can shout.
No, they don't. The moderator recognizes a person. That person gets to speak when that person is done. The moderator, right? I mean,
there was yelling last year.
Well, no, there was yelling about the Burton article.
That's right.
Remember, and then like
the hot one.
Right, that's the hot one, and
yeah.
And then it's.
Yeah, I think it's good too. I mean, it's. I like the way you're redirecting the conversation. If you just put the first line, no one's be be surprised if somebody had an agenda that they want, you know.
And I think this is important to the board. I mean, think about what most of our discussions have been since we started this budget. And we're just letting people know that this is something that we're concerned about, that we have interest in. We've had staff at our meetings. We've never had staff at budget meetings before. We have a lot of interest. We actually had public come to the meeting in November, December, asking us questions. You know, nobody's come since. We did put it in the newspaper that we're having budget discussions. I guess, I don't know, you gotta count Randy kind of staff, because his wife works here now. Is Randy still with us? No, he left us. Anyways, and then, you know, the last article is, last two articles is the voting for the directors in each town. And then the last thing is to adjourn the meeting, which Bob is wishing that we adjourned an hour ago, but we had, I think, some really good discussion and some really good input. So if you guys are good, you all are good, I will make those two changes. I will add what.
What's the date up on the top? 2024.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think if you folks are all good, I will change that. So the wording is going to be, Meredith, if you can help me, Article 12. Any other business may legally be addressed to open discussion for informational purposes and discussion on consolidating and discussion on future, in light of declining enrollment, the board will be discussing in the coming year for the next budget, one, discussion on consolidating none, some, or all the grades in one building, discussion on staffing for the future, and any other topics that the voters would like to recommend. Recommend be discussed. How's that? Is that okay?
Great.
Okay. So if we could, then I would love to have somebody make a motion to adopt the warning, the 2025 River Valley Unified School District meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Laura. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kate? Okay. Eli really wanted to second it, but we'll give it to you all. So motion's made, seconded. Is there any discussion?
Rich?
Yes.
Thank you for working so hard to get some consensus on this.
I think it's good. We just didn't rubber stamp the budget. We've asked a lot of questions, and so thank you to the board for some thoughtful discussion, for being respectful of everybody, and to finally put this to bed.
Heidi's a rock star.
And Heidi, you're the rock star, so thank you. But we gotta vote first. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. Congratulations, we have an agenda. Electric bus update, Bob, in 30 seconds or less.
Don't have one.
Okay.
Good.
Wardsboro water system. Greg, you want to give us a brief, quick update on that?
I'd love to. Yeah, so the permit went in the early last week. Once we hear back from the state, we'll get it done. So the design's done and the permit has been submitted. We're just waiting. The good old state of Vermont, your favorite people in Montpelier, Rich.
No, that's the bureaucrats. My favorite is people are the legislators.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Hey, Greg, the other thing too is since we're into the spring, maybe it would be good to wait for the installation and we can tie that in with the furnaces so we can make sure everything is, the best possible locations.
Yeah, we could.
So just think about that. I see that as the end of old business unless I missed anything. If I didn't, new business boiler, Greg, I think we covered that, right?
We did, yeah.
Okay, so you can put that out to bid too, based on, as long as there's a caveat, as long as it passes at town meeting or school district meeting?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Bob, go ahead.
My report is basically just to mention that I continue to follow what's happening in Montpelier. The 5-district model proposed by the governor, I think, has lost some traction. From what I've heard this morning is that there's a not new, but it's been out for 3 weeks or so now, from Senate Ed, which has, I think, 9 or 10, and it's a combination of SUs and SDs. And it'll be interesting to know that in that model, we would be in the Southeast Region SD, which I'll explain the difference in a second, but that goes from Springfield in the north down to Brattleboro and in the center of the state. So it's a little bit smaller than the original 5 one, but it is, but it's still set up in the language there from a governance structure as an SD, which has, unless the rules change around choice, that would have implications that an SU would not have. An SU would have districts that are separate that could have different choice arrangements, but in a district, you wouldn't have separate choice arrangements based on residence. What that means, who knows? But that's sort of the one that I understand is gaining traction at this point. I don't think anything's going to come out of there for the next year or 2 or 3. It's going to take some time to kind of roll out something around governance. But just thought I'd share that update.
Is Laura still on?
Yep, she is.
So, Laura, I think you just said earlier that you don't think there's going to be whole changes, that it may just be a study group that come.
Right.
You know, nothing's nothing till it happens. The education committees have been given the entire session, I think, to move something which is different than what usually happens. And, you know, I think we'll buy down rates. I think we will assign the future on the Commission on the Future of Public Education in Vermont more work. And what I have heard actually is put in place some parameters on class sizes, which is challenging if we aren't making any other governance support changes. So that's what I've heard.
So we have, I mean, they have thrown class sizes at us in the past, and there's, you know, so many variables on that because, you know, there's just not enough students in an area.
Yeah, if you just push down on class sizes without looking at the entire system, you're just, you know, you're just playing Hunger Games.
Yeah. But buying down the rate, are you saying more than what's being proposed now so that we actually may not need to transfer as much come May?
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, money is
done till everybody goes home.
It's a hard maybe.
And we hope that everybody goes
Hard
home
maybe.
long
Exactly.
before hay season starts.
And the only other thing I was just going to mention is that there will be a discussion. I mentioned this to Rich and Kate in our planning session, that there will be a need for the policy committee to reconvene soon because there are some policies, at least one I know of them, I'm going to double check, that are newly mandated for July 1 implementation. So we'll have to roll through that a little bit with the policy committee. So maybe, I don't know if you guys wait till you reorg to do that, or do you want to establish?
Well, when are you going to have your meeting?
The policy committee? Well, if we're doing it prior to budget and prior to your annual meeting, then you already have an existing situation. I think Kate is the chair of that. So I can.
No, Allison was the chair. Kate's our rep.
Oh, well, this is at the district level as well.
The
So we would need it at the
Kate's
district
the
level as
chair
well.
of the district
So
one.
I mean, I can talk to Kate about having a pre-meeting to kind of talk that through and see where we're at. But you guys have more meetings than the average board, as you may have heard.
Yeah.
And so that allows you.
I've heard people complain.
Yeah, I mean,
about
I'm just pointing it out. So that
who's pointing it out?
I'm pointing it out that you wouldn't have to have as far in advance because you'd have the opportunity to warn and then adopt. So you have a little less pressure on that end, but yeah, just that was the only thing to kind of throw out. Happy to take any other questions.
Remember, Bob, we have a lot of meetings because we like you so much.
I assumed that was the reason. You used to have them once a year before I came around, right?
Yeah, we used to have them once a century. Anybody for anything for Bob?
Thanks, Bob.
Bob, I'm very happy that you joined us and became our superintendent because you've done yeoman's job. You've had so many big pain in the neck items thrown at you, and you're still here. And I mean, that 52-year contract is just looking better all the time.
Bargain.
Francesca, the away team.
All right, real quick, let's see. We are celebrating the reading challenge for the March, and we have a book fair going on at school right now, thanks to Bartleby's. We also started our wonderful standardized testing this week. We started today, actually, so that's always fun. 3 through 6th grade started. And last but certainly not least, our 3rd and 4th grade did a little preview at our last all-school sing with their coded Lego robots, and cars. They did a really great job. And so they're going to do some more exciting stuff this Thursday at our all-school sing. So come watch them. It's pretty amazing what they can do with them. So that is it over at Wardsboro right now.
Thank you. Oh,
Thursday at 8:35. Come on down.
anything for Francesca? No? Tracy, and I got a question for you when it's over.
So we have added an extra layer of support in our first grade classroom to bolster some reading scores, and we are seeing some good traction with that. I got a call from a parent actually saying how all of a sudden their first grader is really reading, and so that was wonderful. We are in the midst of our March Reading Challenge too. If you look on the board outside Lori's office, you'll see that we've almost made it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Read Across America. we're just minutes away from that.
Cleveland suburbs. Sounds amazing.
We got our lead testing for some faucets back today. There were some numbers that were not where we wanted them, so we have closed some faucets and are working on that with Greg. And most importantly, and last but most excitingly, we added 2 new students to our population today. So we're super excited about that.
Did you steal them from somewhere?
No. That's, I don't know.
He's accusing him of abducting.
I did not abduct anyone, I promise.
Well, I mean, I was going to congratulate you and say maybe if you need more help, you know. My real quick question was, I was freezing and now I'm hot. Is this heat in this building right?
It's just a budget.
Or is it just
budget discussion?
Yeah, but I got cold during the budget discussion. And now then it's starting to feel hot. No, I'm very serious. I know we've had some issues with the.
I would suggest maybe it might be, you might not be feeling well. No, we have an occupied and an unoccupied set. It's so, and it flips off, I think. I don't know, Lori and I noticed it, I think at like 4 o'clock, I think it is, we become unoccupied and the heat does go down.
Kids,
so.
the kid heat from the kids.
Well, I don't know, but it felt like there was a draft or something. And, okay.
I had a quick question. So I saw something about performance at Memorial Hall. Is that something to do with the schools? Or?
Yes, that's our, so Wardsboro and Dover students are working together for the River Valleys theater project. It is a parent-run group and a parent-run program, and they are performing Jack and the Beanstalk at Memorial Hall.
I saw that. Do you know the date of it?
It's April 4th and 5th, I believe.
All right.
I gotta look at my calendar, but I'm pretty sure that's when it is.
I'll make sure on the record. That sounds very exciting.
Tracy, you have somebody in the waiting room?
Val.
No.
Oh, Val
This is
went back
oh, no,
out.
Valerie?
Maybe she got popped out.
Okay, tell her we're sorry.
Sorry, Val.
Well, I saw an extra square up there. I couldn't read it, that's why.
Oh, there you go.
Circle
There.
next to square.
I wish I could see. Anybody else for Tracy? Any questions? Bob, I'd say if you want to take off, you're good. Go have some ice cream.
And cookies.
Pardon?
And cookies.
Yeah. Can we talk tomorrow though? I want to make sure what we need to put together for the booklet.
Annual report. Yep,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
to send out, okay?
Can I just do a real quick shout out? While
Yeah, you want to shout out?
Absolute shout out to all the volunteers for the winter sports program that wrapped up last week. Everyone did extremely well. I don't believe we lost any kids. And a lot of parents.
Found two extra.
Yeah,
Yeah, we found two.
We found
actually. I saw Tracy with the van circling a lot.
Tracy, good job.
Yeah.
Thanks for your support.
Yep. We're here for you.
Do it earlier in the year so we get the
Everybody's
count.
Yeah. Everyone did great.
That's awesome.
And there was a little pizza party at the end, and everyone was tickled at the mountain. So I love it.
Tracy's been making pizzas, I hear.
Yeah.
It is the 4th and the 5th.
Huh?
4th and the 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a night and an afternoon, something like that. I saw that.
Okay.
Let's check it out.
We ready to let Tracy off the hook? She's had the hot seat a lot today. Thank you, Tracy. Approved financials. Oh, did we let Greg and Heidi go too? Heidi, if you want to take, we're going to approve the financials, but you can take off if you want to.
Feel better.
Sounds good, thank you.
Sorry about the late meeting.
No problem, thanks.
We have 3 pay warrants to approve. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to approve pay warrant number 41 in the amount of $119.62, pay warrant 42 in the amount of $1,109.63, and pay warrant number 44 in the amount of $110,574.60.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Oh, Eli beat you, Lord, by just a smidge. So we have a motion and a second to approve the 3 pay warrants, 41, 42, and 44. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. Pay warrants are done. Approved financials. Okay, we have consent agenda or for the minutes from, March 3rd's meeting. Is everybody good with those? Today's St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. She's got some green on.
No other place I'd rather be.
You got green.
Right.
I had it for lunch. It was really good. Okay, there's no, we'll approve the minutes by unanimous consent of the March 3rd meeting. I don't have any correspondence. I should ask Bob, but we will get the letter that Bridget read. She did say she's going to give us a copy, right? I think.
Oh, what
She said she would write something up.
Yes. Okay, because she said she didn't. That's right. What she said was not exactly what was in the letter, but she's going to get it to us. Okay. Can you when you get that and you send it to central office, can you send me a copy too, please? Parking lot is just nothing. April 7th is the Wardsboro School meeting at the Wardsboro School. We will review the agenda with everybody at that meeting in Wardsboro, and then Laura? No.
Sorry, what's that, Rich?
Oh, I didn't know if you said something. You're sideways too, just so you know. Now your head's up. Okay, and then I think we'll meet 2 weeks after that, so probably the 21st. We'll be in Wardsboro, or we'll be in Dover, and we'll have the pre-annual meeting. Everybody, don't forget that, what's that?
Post the warning on the 20th, we're already done with that, so we approved that.
Well, right, it has to be out by the 28th.
Right.
So that's gonna give us a couple days to clean it up and then get it to Andy.
Perfect.
And then, so the 21st, we'll have the meeting in Dover. So that will be, there's gonna be a warrant meeting first to discuss the agenda. We don't have to do anything special for that, like this setup will work fine.
Okay, perfect.
And then the 28th is voting, so you have to, You vote first, and then on the 29th, the meeting will be at 7. Remember, we got to be there at 6 because we have to help count votes. That was one of the deals we made with Andy. Thank you. Right. So I think that covers our meetings. I think we're looking for that most important agenda motion that we make at every meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 8:40 p.m.
Thank you, everybody. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good meeting, folks. Thank you.
Excellent.